Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. You're listening to Knives Monroe versus the podcast. How you guys doing? Hopefully you're doing well. It is January 5th, 2020. We've been doing this 5 days in a row, and I'm proud to say that. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, follow us on Spotify. That's the one I'm going to be promoting the most, just because I think Spotify is most readily available on all the platforms. Subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and all that good stuff. I'm here today with a dear friend, Kendall York, who's an indie filmmaker buddy of mine. He's one of the few artists who is helping me keep my Indie Darlings group page alive. And don't think I don't notice that. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad to finally have you on the show. Kendall, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So let's start at the beginning. Off mic, we were talking about a few things that we wanted to go over. I'm a filmmaker, and people have heard, Jesus, if they've heard it once, they've heard it 1,000 times, my origin story. But I'm very curious about yours. First, let's start with, where are you from, and how many birthdays have you had?
I turned 25 just now in November this year. Technically last year, and I'm 25. Sorry, I'm messing up here. Lost my thought. Yeah, and then I've been loving movies since before I could remember. I saw Toy Story and 101 Dalmatians. My mom took me to see that in the theaters when I was a year old. And went out, and then we had a classroom assignment in first grade where we had to draw a picture of what we wanted to be when we grow up. So I was thinking, I grew up watching like the behind the scenes on VHS of Indiana Jones and Star Wars. So I was like, you know what, I'll be a filmmaker. So I've been chasing it ever since.
Wow. So 25 years old, you were born in 95?
94.
94. That's right. Man, that's crazy. So what year was it roughly when you were like in high school, like say 16, 17? What year was that?
2013 when I graduated.
And so, 2013. So the movies that were around during that time were pretty lit. Say like 2010, like the beginning of the decade was during your formative years. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that.
And so, like, 2010 had classics like Inception, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Social Network. 2011 had Melancholia, which I was, like, a big fan of. Some great movies. 2012 had, like, Django Unchained, The Master. 2013's a little spotty, but, like, I remember Man of Steel, Pacific Rim, Great Gatsby. Like, that was the summer, I can recall.
And Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street. Was that 2013?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters.
Are you, this is kind of like a silly question, but would you say you're a Scorsese guy?
I think so.
Who were some filmmakers that you discovered when you realized, oh shit, I'm a filmmaker? Who were some of the guys that you're like, these are, kind of like my father figures or my idols? They don't have to be just men, right? But who were some of the filmmakers that were your gateway guys?
I almost became one filmmaker, and I became another. First, I was a big James Cameron fan. I thought, I'll be a big blockbuster filmmaker.
So you were saying, did I hear you mention like PTA and Tarantino?
Tarantino, yeah.
What was the movie?
Pulp Fiction was my first one.
Oh, dude, it's always Pulp Fiction, man. It's Quentin has this weird balance of, he makes it look easy. His movies are so kind of like fanboy inspired of like, I love this, I love that, I love this, I love that, I think you think, oh shit, that means I could do that. All I got to do is just love a movie or love filmmaking very much. That's all I got to do. Well, I can do that.
To me, it was like people sitting around talking in a diner was when I realized I could do that.
Yeah, man. You and me have talked before about Kevin Smith. Like, how did you discover him? Just because I feel like he's more of a kind of like an old school kind of voice from like when it was happening. Like I think it's kind of rare that people discover Kevin Smith kind of after his 90s era, right?
Someone talked about him on YouTube, and I looked up the trailer on YouTube and ordered it on Netflix DVD mail and thought it was really funny.
And what movie was that?
Clerks.
Clerks is the movie that I remember watching and thinking, oh shit, that counts? I could do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
that's how I felt.
Do you still want to make the big summer blockbusters?
I don't know. I don't think I can physically do it. I get too stressed out. I think it'll be too stressful.
For sure. So how did you start practicing filmmaking?
Well, when I was like 3 or 4, I couldn't wait for Toy Story 2 to come out, so I made like a Toy Story 2 fan film. And
how did you? What tools did you have to play with at that time?
Just my dad was videotaping me with me playing my Toy Story toys on a VHS C camera.
Do you still have copies of that by any chance?
Somewhere, yeah.
Oh, that's going to go in the documentary that they make about you. So make sure that you keep those in pristine condition.
Thanks,
and what about in, say, elementary, middle school, high school? Like, how did you cut your teeth?
I wish I did more. I didn't really do more. I was pretty much more studying my craft and learning about the history of film and watching behind the scenes.
What were some, BTS or featurettes or things that you can remember seeing? And did you ever get to apply the things that you learned in real life?
So mainly recently reading books. I watched the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just saw, usually anytime I get inspired to watch Lord of the Rings, I'm like, that's great, but I need to start from the beginning. I can't just cut to part 3. And I usually watch Fellowship of the Ring. I get satiated, completely fulfilled, and then I don't finish it. I've seen Fellowship maybe 15 times, and I've seen the other 2 maybe twice. I am that guy where I have seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the extended cuts in one sitting, which was very difficult, and I was able to do it in my early 20s. I couldn't do it now, but
I still need to do that.
It's intense. And so I just skipped Fellowship, which I normally never do, and I saw Two Towers and Return of the King a couple days ago. And oh my God, I was watching it with my son who's 14. So, that's where all the good shit comes and hits you. And I don't know where Peter Jackson started with that movie. That story is way too big. The filmmaking is just way too giant and overwhelming. The fact that I believe it was all one production, right? They made it all at the same time.
Yeah, they did it back to back.
What did you get out of that? What can you take from the Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, and what he did, and how do you apply it to what you do?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe I think I can apply more to what he's done on Bad Taste, his first feature film.
I never saw it.
It's very DIY, any filmmaking. It looks like a YouTube video.
Awesome.
Did all the effects. He did all the effects himself and made the mask in his parents' oven.
That is awesome. Peter Jackson, man. He has this, he reminds me of Guillermo del Toro, and that anytime he gets to make a movie, it's like a kid in the bathtub playing with his toys.
Yeah, that's what I got out of, that's exactly what I got out of the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes. And that's what got me hooked on filmmaking.
So flash forward to, say, your 20s. What do you do for a job?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Yeah, what do you do for a job? What do you do for a job?
Oh, GLB. Oh, yeah. I work at a hospital cafeteria right now at nights.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I don't think I knew that. Maybe when we started talking, you were doing something else, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I just started probably.
Wow, that's cool. And is that nights?
It's 5 days a week. It's 4 to 9:30.
4 p.m. to 9:30 a.m.?
4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m.
Oh, gotcha, man. And are you able to have a work-life balance?
I'm struggling with that, man. I tried my best. Since I can sleep most of the day, I usually go home and when I go home, I watch movies, Netflix, or stream stuff, and I also work on my screenplays and watch tutorials and podcasts, and then I go to bed.
How do you balance soaking up information, data mining, collecting inspiration? Like, how do you manage that and then flipping it into productivity?
I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. I just go with my instincts. I don't really have a process I do. I've always had a pretty good memory.
Okay, so when it comes to filmmaking, I feel like it's kind of like working out at the gym. In order to get big muscles and to grow, you have to be on the offense and attack those muscles again and again and again. Put more weights on the bar, stretch it, put more pressure on it so it can grow. And you got to get reps in, repetition, right? Tony Robbins, who I'm a big acolyte of, says repetition is the mother of skill. And I'll give you an example. In 2012, I made a movie. It was about a 30-day total process, just production, not even count. The screenplay was done. So from, I think it was 19 shooting days, took me 10 days to edit it. We screened it on one day. And it just so happens to be a nice even number, 30 days of actual work, not counting stress, panic attacks, no call, no shows, just actual days on the job training, 30 days for a whole month. And it took 8 months in 2011 to write the screenplay. So you spend all this time in your head theorizing, how am I going to shoot that day? Maybe you have a storyboard, maybe you have a shot list. But all that matters is that day. What are you going to get? And Mother Nature always wins. So if something crazy happens that day, you might not be able to get your shit in. And you have to...
Oh, I feel you.
You know what I'm saying? So as far as reps, hours, time, what can you paint a picture for me of those times where you get to grow and you get to actually focus on filmmaking and being able to support yourself, as is difficult when you have a full-time job and maybe you dabble with school or you have responsibilities or there's the stresses and anxieties that come with, home life and family life, It's very difficult and expensive to try to get under the umbrella in the filmmaking world and play and have those reps, right? So how do you do it? How have you done it? And can you talk to me about the growth of that for a while?
You pretty much answered it right there. Repetition. I have a lot of free time, so I just do nothing but study film and work on screenplays. I did last year try to make a feature film, which fell apart by one day.
Were you able to wrap it?
No, I did not. We had one day of filming left, and my lead actor, business partner, producer quit on the last day.
I've definitely been in those situations where you come so far, and in the end, it doesn't even matter. Just like the Linkin Park song. Have you been able to bring a short film or a feature film to maturity, like where you complete the entire production cycle and you present it in front of an audience?
Yeah, the one I sent you, I filmed a feature film 2 years ago. In 2018, that was my first feature film I did, Bad Fans.
So rap about that for a minute. Walk me through the screenwriting process, the casting process, filming, post-production, editing, and presenting it in front of an audience.
I pretty much did what I learned. I applied from doing 48-hour short film festivals. So we didn't really have a script. I was inspired by it's love letter to Kevin Smith and Mumblecore films, like the Bus Brothers and Joe Swanberg. So the whole film was pretty much improv. All I had was a idea of topics. And what the app is, it's like a podcast. When I sent it to you, you said it was like it reminded you of a podcast.
That's right.
I pretty much took inspiration from My Damn Andre and turned it into, but with Star Wars fans.
That's right. So how much of that was yes, of course. How much of that was improvised and how much of that was written on paper?
I just had topics written down. That's all I did was have topics, and the redneck shows up and tells him get a job. That was it.
It's funny, like I feel like mumblecore films never really had the prestige that like the early 90s indie film revolution that like Robert Rodriguez, Tarantino kind of propelled. Mumblecore kind of came and went and was disregarded like at the same time. And I was one of those snobs that looked at Joe Swanberg and was like, this is hack. This is lazy. I'm not a big fan of this. And I had to kind of grow up a little to look back and appreciate it for really being intimate and really saying that filmmaking doesn't have to be boom, 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 craziness, special effects. Like making it minimal brought more focus and attention to the performances, to the dialogue, to the naturalism. And that was something that I forgot and missed about like the intimacy of a movie, right? Did you ever see Richard Linklater's Tape?
I need to. That's on my list.
I think it's on Amazon Prime, actually. I thought it was on Netflix.
Okay,
but
cool.
It's on Amazon Prime, so you can stream it for sure. I'm sure maybe it's on YouTube or something. But that was something that I saw at a very early age, and without giving really much of it away, it's 3 actors in a hotel room in real time. Richard Linklater was always one of those guys that pioneered. Kind of what I did was,
I hear an echo. Is it okay?
I don't hear anything. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of inspiration for bad fans of that and My Damn Andre. Well, reading about Tape is a big inspiration.
So, walk me through. Well, let me ask you this: how much money did that movie cost to produce?
Under $500. Probably $350.
Were you able to distribute it or try to make your money back?
It was mainly just for practice.
I see. And what did you learn from putting it out there? You know, I probably didn't give you much critical feedback. I really just saw it and was like, "Oh, this is something that I did with my friends when I was in high school." It's one of those kind of steps up the ladder, right? Like when you start there. You know, like Robert Rodriguez had something very similar. Like, what was that short film called?
Every director has 10 back films in them.
I probably have more than that in me for sure. That's a good one. Who said that? Was that Ed Wood?
That was Robert Rodriguez.
There you go.
Director has 10 back films.
Yeah, for sure. So what did you learn when it was all said and done, and what would you have done different?
More preparation.
Like what specifically?
Like, I had a location fell through. Like, we were going to film it on the back of my parents' house with a brick wall to make it more like a red box, but there's too much noise, so we had to, like, pretty much film by the fence in the last minute.
And so...
And take more time casting, too.
What did you feel like a sort of pressure to finish it and say, ta-da, here it is, or... You know, I'm very guilty.
Pretty much.
I'm projecting right now. Like I'm guilty of like getting something to 80% and saying, "Look, done is better than perfect. Here it is. Take it or leave it." But
I mean, I always wanted to make films, but I was so scared of like failure or people call me a hack or like making a bad movie. So I was pretty much, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to make a movie and here it is, and just do it for practice. And like Gary Vee had this video saying "fuck up on purpose."
Yeah, I agree with that. Have you thought about looking into, because I feel like you're like me in that you and me, we romanticize like 90-minute feature films. Have you ever thought
We
about
do, yeah.
making like TikToks or things like in that digital space, like in the social media space?
I thought about it.
And what do you think about that?
I'm not sure I'm too romantic, like you said, but I'll probably maybe do both. Are you there?
Yeah, of course. Another thing
Okay.
about being romantic about, filmmaking is I think we glamorize the difficulty. We make it harder than it needs to be, insofar as we have to do a casting call, and you got to do that the quote unquote right way. I got to find an editor, a sound person, and I have to do that quote unquote the right way. And then distribute it, which if you're going to be traditional about it, that usually means putting it into a film festival, letting other people judge your work and be the arbiters of the shelf life of the movie, where it's going to exist in the afterlife. How do you wrestle with being creatively fulfilled, but also going down the step-by-step process of filmmaking, like quote unquote, how to make it in the traditional old school sense?
I don't know. I've been kind of recently combining new school with old school. Like I had this idea and selling my movie on DVDs, selling them on USB flash drives, like musicians do.
And so what do you think about that? Like let me ask you, as an indie filmmaker in 2020, do the ends justify the means, and what are the ends? Like what does, like, do you want to make a living making movies?
I do.
And so how do we do that in 2020?
There's a podcast I recommend. This guy pretty much talks about it. It's called You Have to Be an Entrepreneur, pretty much.
So Kendall, how do you plan on doing it? Do you have a plan, or is that still a work in progress?
I kind of do. I feel like you have to make multiple feature films a year and make enough profit that justifies the means. Like, do you see that photo I posted on the Facebook group?
Yeah. So what was the intent behind that? Like, what were you trying to say? And for the listeners who can't see it, describe it to them.
Okay, it's if you make 30 films a year, 20K profit, that's like $42,000 a year.
And so, I mean, like, what does that mean? Like, how do we implement that?
You have to make a filmmaking factory. Just have to be quick and with your films.
One thing that I find difficult, and it's interesting, I just pulled it up here. You wrote a $14,000 profit of 3 films a year equals $42,000 a year. A $14,000 profit of 4 films a year is $56,000 a year. Flash forward to $14,000 profit for 6 films a year is $84,000. So do you mean producing 6 films that each make $14,000 in profit?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
So I understand the net of casting a wide shadow, a wide net, 6 films, 5 films a year. What's difficult is with the advent of OTT platforms, streaming platforms, your Netflix, your Disney Plus, your Amazon Primes, your Hulus, and so on. They're so valuable in that I can have access to Netflix's entire filmography and library for $12 a month? How am I supposed to sell one movie, a 90-minute feature, in such a competitive market? And what am I supposed to sell it for when Netflix is offering people all the movies for $12 a month? Like, how do I make money in 2020 in filmmaking?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I guess have a fan base.
Okay, so say you
Personal
have
branding.
When I was cutting my teeth and like a little younger than you on YouTube, the guy that I wanted to follow in his footsteps, like my Joe Swanberg, was Freddie Wong from Rocket Jump. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He introduced me to this concept of I think it was like the 100 hardcore fans or the 1,000 hardcore fans. And if you
1,000 true fans.
Exactly. And if you have 1,000
that.
hardcore fans that contribute to your cause, say of $10, right? Let's just do some quick math here. Obviously, I'm dumb. Bear with me here. 1,000 times 10 is $10,000, right? So $10,000, say you produce something quarterly. So times 4 is $40,000. So if you have 1,000 hardcore fans, and once every 4 months you get them to pay $10 for something, that's $40,000 a year. That's enough to make a living.
Yeah, it is.
That's enough to pay for rent somewhere.
Yeah.
So how do we attract 1,000 hardcore fans as filmmakers?
You have to niche down.
And so by niching down,
have a very specific niche and like have a very specific audience in mind.
Do you think, and how do we like connect with them, right? Like, what is the gateway drug now? Because back in our day, it was going to Blockbuster, going to Redbox, going to the movie theater. All of a sudden, you become a fan of David Lynch. And so you meet other David Lynch fans. And when David Lynch drops his next movie, you're going to support that, right?
Right.
But a David Lynch movie comes once every 10 years or something. So today in 2020, like, I almost feel like the 1,000 fans, I almost feel like they need our phone number and we have to talk to them every day and like connect with them and like wow them and like be cool with them like every single day. Basically as a filmmaker, like what you said about you have to be an entrepreneur, filmmaking and like the artist brain is rarely aligned with the entrepreneur businessman brain. So now we have to become balance. We have to educate ourselves.
Balance I struggle with.
It's difficult because we went to school, whether if it's YouTube University or say some sort of film school. We went to school for film, and now we got to go to school for business, essentially.
Yeah.
And we become a multifaceted hydra where we got to know about f-stops and cameras and audio and wave files, and we got to know about business and supply and demand and marketing. It's just like we got to learn more and more and more. So how do you connect with the brand, and what's the daily relationship with this audience like? Because you can't make a movie every single day, right? Or can you?
I feel like Facebook ads are the best way to reach people now, and Instagram ads.
But, what would you advertise?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I've been hustling to figure that out.
It seems like that's kind of like the new first base, and we need to figure that out before we even have like a story or a movie.
Exactly.
If I could just, pontificate a little bit about that, me personally, like I was a guy, I wanted to be Larry Clark, David Lynch, Lars von Trier. Like those are my guys, PTA.
Yeah.
And making a movie is so expensive and requires connections, and you have to be a people person, and there's money involved, and there's responsibilities, all that stuff. You have to be creative, you have to be artistic, but you also have to be a ruthless business person at the same time, or at least have people that vouch for you, that have that credibility.
Exactly.
And so for me, it's become less about fiction. It's become less about actual stories, and it's become more about people and like relationships with other humans. I actually think about you all the time. if I'm being real.
Really?
Because
Thanks, man.
Because of what you post online and how you're just one of the few dudes that posts in my group. And that actually
I get a lot of traction on it, so.
That's surprising. You deserve more, to be honest. You deserve way more.
Thanks, man.
And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because I look at you as like one of my guys. I count on Kendall, you know, and I support you. And I want to be able to get to this place financially where if Kendall has a lit idea, it's like, cool, well, what does he need? If he's the visionary, I guess like, and I'm not saying this is you. I'm just kind of ranting out loud, thinking out loud, but like, this might not be you per se. This was me for a while, but not every filmmaker or not every artist or creative is a business person. And so they need to be taken care of or managed, and they need to be, they need to have the connections with people that have those resources, and then they need to be protected, right? So one day I want to be able to produce movies, and what that means is putting the money up for those movies and making sure that that production stays on schedule, and hopefully you don't overspend, right? So if I wanted to produce a Kendall York picture, you know, I also have to ask myself, well, how do I make my money back, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think about that with you, actually. Like, I really do. I'm like, I believe in Kendall. He just needs more reps and opportunities, just like the rest of us. And when his time comes and he's at the plate, can he hit a home run?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what this business, you know, is that's how it starts and ends. It's the end all be all in a lot of ways. And so, you know, where do you see yourself fitting in this new decade, man? Because the truth is, this world moves so fast. As soon as we got it figured out, the platforms change. The ground underneath us terraforms, right? So
you want to keep on doing reps and figuring it out.
So how's your YouTube channel?
I've more of my videos, short films, are my friends' channels. I haven't really done YouTube. I unlisted some of my videos because of the new YouTube policy, because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I put them back on now. So and I got pretty good exposure. I got more views than I thought I would on Bad Fans on YouTube.
Do you see yourself making like? Do you want to make money like with filmmaking tools? Like, do you see yourself doing like wedding videography or stuff like that? Did you ever like play with stuff like that, or do you just strictly want to be a filmmaker?
I did my friend's wedding, and I was too stressed out with it. I'm kind of I get stressed out easily. I'm more of a kind of introverted kind of guy.
I feel you. Yeah. At the same time, like on the same token, I feel every filmmaker like us has tried a wedding. You know, it's weird. Like it's like doing a short film. It's like being invited to basically fuck up and try to do a short film in the beginning. Like when everybody's first wedding is usually a horror story. Usually, But that's kind of like that's sort of the unorthodox road that's just laid out in front of us, because there's no straight line to becoming a David Fincher, right?
Right.
I feel like it's a hard balance, man, because it ain't easy.
You know how you say straight road? I feel like the future it's not going to be a straight thing anymore. I feel like it's going to be a bunch of different types of business models that people do for themselves.
For sure. I really believe in the path to least resistance, right? What do you think is going to be, or if you had to fantasy book it, what would that path look like for you?
It's just having probably using some of the profits from my films and invest in rental properties and use that money in stock market and stuff, and use that to help fund my movies.
That's amazing, man. Do you have a few scripts that are already written? Like if somebody wanted to greenlit, you'd be able to be like this one.
exactly. I have a rough draft right now of a script. That was a short film, and I'm going to turn into a feature. It's a spoof on the Ryan Reynolds movie Buried.
Oh, cool. I actually never got to see that.
I've been watching it again. I just read about it, and it's like the original budget was the screenwriter was going to produce himself for $5,000, and then until he got big names attached to it.
Nice. So speaking of Buried, what were some movies in 2019 that were like a rock in your shoe that really stuck with you?
Dynamite is my name, the Eddie Murphy Netflix movie.
Oh, Dolomite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a movie about movie making. What was it about it that you loved?
I just love movies about making movies. A lot of my ideas for films are a lot like movies about making movies and stuff. And it's just and how he is also a businessman too, not just an artist.
It's a good point. Did you ever see Be Kind, Rewind?
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
That's a good one too. That's one of my favorite. Also, kind of like low key, The Disaster Artist is a little like that.
Oh, I love that movie. I showed my mom. She has no idea about The Room or anything, and it freaked her out. And she's like, "Is this really a true story? Did this really happen?"
Dude, that's so funny. Your mom. That's a weird movie to watch with your mom. And yeah, the weird part is,
You're right. I've seen a lot of weird movies with my mom, so.
I think the weirdest movie I've ever seen with my mom. I've seen a lot of weird stuff with her too. Maybe Black Swan.
Yeah,
that one was a little weird.
That is. Yeah.
She had a good time watching Us. We saw Us on my birthday. What's another one? We've seen some good movies together. I usually watch good movies.
My mom's a big fan of The Departed.
Ooh, it's one of my all-time favorites right there.
Yeah, and then this is awkward. I was so pumped to see Wolf of Wall Street. My parents and I went for Christmas, and I didn't know about all the nudity in it and the drugs, but she thought it was really funny though.
Oh, she's got a good sense of humor then.
I guess so, yeah.
I think the movie literally starts with like DiCaprio doing coke off of somebody's butthole.
No, I know, yeah, and then I was awkward the whole time, but I looked over and saw her laughing the whole time.
Well, thank God the movie's only 3 hours.
Yeah, I know. And I was still I didn't really the anxiety went away because I was so into the craftsmanship Scorsese did in that movie. It's probably one of the most well-crafted films I've ever seen.
Oh, Martin Scorsese's the best, man. Did you get to see The Irishman?
I'm still in the middle of watching it. I saw the first half.
Oh, dude, that's a good one. It's one of
I love it.
It's one of his best.
Yeah.
He's such a when his filmography is all said and done, the big picture of what Martin Scorsese will be known for will be legendary for sure. It already is.
I know. I still like Casino and Goodfellas better though.
Let me ask you, do you have, this kind of off topic, but do you have a group of friends like in your hometown that they're able to chat about movies with and maybe trade like from your collection from one of theirs? And like, do you have a group of like homeboys that you can hang out with and talk about movies with?
I did, but a lot of them one of them went off to grad school now, and then the other one has a family now, so we don't get to hang out as much.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to maybe meet more like-minded people?
A little bit. I've been putting myself out there a lot more now. I've been going to networking events and stuff.
And where are you at right now? Where are you located?
Springfield, Missouri.
Springfield, Missouri. Okay. And that's got to be I've never been there. I've actually never been to Missouri, but that's got to be like a metropolitan area, right? Like a big city?
It is. It's a small city.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been going to Springfield Improv to scout out actors for improv films.
Wow, that's brutal. That's kind of smart too. Have you ever thought about being a personality or a performer in front of the camera?
I've acted. I hate it. I have stage fright.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I have a film I can send you, and you can put in the show notes of a film I acted in with one of my buddies.
Yeah,
for a 48-hour film competition.
Yeah, send it to me. Have you ever? So, how many 24 or 48-hour film competitions have you competed in?
I've done 3.
And what do you get out of that? Like, you got to learn. I mean, talk about reps. Like, you got to be learning. Those are fast lessons.
Those are my film school right there. That's the best film school I ever had. I learned more than that I took in film classes in high school and college.
So look at this podcast right now. I'm going to give you the floor. No pressure. If this was a master class of what you learned from those film races, what could you impart to impressionable indie filmmakers in the making that they can take away with that?
Deadline and chaos, and thinking on your feet.
I'm a big fan of deadlines. Like, if I don't put a deadline on something, it's going to exist in my brain forever. I got to get it out. I
feel like that's all. Sorry, I may interrupt you. I feel like that's all creatives. We use procrastination to our advantage.
Yeah, I think procrastination exists. It's a human condition. Like, I think that's all of our natural state. And without a deadline or without a concrete hard out, we're never going to get anything done.
Exactly.
For sure. And I think even the brightest minds and smartest organized people probably procrastinate in one shape, form, or another. So you mentioned chaos in terms of the film races. Like, give me an example.
Well, my buddy helped me act in a film, and his girlfriend at the time wanted to be an actress, and she was kind of a diva, and they kind of I believe you shouldn't have couples on a movie set sometimes. Well, certain couples, and he kind of took over some of the directing a little bit, and then he said some stuff he shouldn't say to an actress or a girlfriend, and she sat there and said, I'm going to sit here and not do anything until he apologizes to me.
Yeesh. Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a different vibe when you have an actual real life couple that are on a movie set. It's a different vibe for sure. You definitely have to be a professional that takes your job very seriously to not let that interfere with the job.
Absolutely.
Man, I gotta tell you, I'm really looking forward to what Kendall York's got going on in 2020. Can you tell my listeners what they can look forward to and where they should be able to follow you and how they can keep themselves posted on that?
You can follow me on Kendall York on Instagram. That's pretty much my main thing. I pretty much post pictures of my dogs and cats, and I post behind the scenes pics and photos of what I'm working on.
That's cool, man. And
I'm planning on doing 2 feature films this year.
2 feature films.
Yeah.
Man. Feature films.
I'm writing. I have one rough draft I'm still working on, and I have an outline of the second one. I'm talking with a producer I met at a 40-hour film festival who might be the casting director or production manager. She wants to see a script first.
Wow. That's cool, man. Well, I'm going to look forward to that. Feature films, the fact that you've completed one, you're a part of an elite class of filmmakers, because I know people that are so talented that have been doing this for 20 years that never got a feature film under their belt, right? So the fact that you have gotten one out of the way, it doesn't have to be a mind fuck. You're no longer an aspiring filmmaker. You're a real filmmaker, bona fide, right? So best of luck on 2020. Hopefully the next time we chat on the podcast, it's going to be about you promoting one of your feature films.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Kendall
man.
York. Follow Kendall York on Instagram. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man.
Thank you, sir.